Laws regulating transportation establishments. There are two types of carrier, the common carrier and the private carrier. Common carrier is a person or company that transports goods or people for any person or company and that is responsible for any possible loss of the goods during transport. A common carrier offers its services to the general public under the license or authority provided by a regulatory body. The regulatory body has usually been granted ministerial authority by the legislation that created it. The regulatory body may create, interpret, and enforce its regulations upon the common carrier, with independence and finality, as long as it acts within the bounds of the enabling legislation. Example of common carrier is the driver of the hotel using the hotel's van is getting the tourists from the airport. The driver should make sure that his passengers will arrive safely to the hotel. The private carrier is a company that transports only its own goods. The carrier's primary business is not transportation. Private carriers may refuse to sell their services at their own discretion, whereas common carriers must treat all customers equally. Example of private carrier is the LBC Cargo, wherein they handles the loading and unloading of cargoes from the other country, also within the country. They deliver the packages from the OFW house to house. Next is the charter party. It is a contract between the owner of a vessel and the charterer for the use of the vessel. The charterer takes over the vessel for either a certain amount of time or for a certain point-to-point voyage, giving rise to these two main types of charterer agreement. Example of charter party is the charterer of the boat makes sure that in 1 hour he can get the tourists from the other island and go back to the main island. Voyage charter or time charter. It is the hiring of vessel and crew for a voyage between a load port and discharge port. The charterer pays the vessel owner on a per ton or lump sum basis. The owner pays the port cost, fuel cost, and crew cost. The payment for the use of the vessel is known as freight. Example of time charter is the tourist is hiring a boat with a charterer. The tourist pay the fee and the charterer pay the vessel owner for any damages. The vessel owner pays the port for entering it, just like the boat in Pier 2 that travels to Lapu-Lapu. Next is the bareboat or the demise charter. It is an arrangement for the chartering or hiring of a ship or boat, whereby no crew or provisions are included as part of the agreement. Instead, the people who rent the vessel from the owner are responsible for taking care of such things. Example on that is a tourist rent a boat for kayaking with no supervision or a tour guide. The tourist should be careful with the boat or else he or she will pay for the damages done. Next law is the Article 1732, wherein common carriers are persons, corporations, firms, or associations engaged in the business of carrying or transporting passengers or goods or both, by land, water, or air, for compensation offering their services to the public. Example of the Article 1732 is the hotel's van getting the tourists from the airport. The driver should make sure that his passengers will arrive safely to the hotel. Laws under the nature of contract carriage. First is the Article 1733. Common carriers, from the nature of their business and for reasons of public policy, are bound to observe extraordinary diligence in the vigilance over the goods and for the safety of the passengers transported by them. According to all the circumstances of each case, such extraordinary diligence in the vigilance over the goods is further expressed in Article 1734, 1735, and 1745, numbers 5, 6, and 7, while the extraordinary diligence for the safety of the passengers is further set forth in the Articles 1755 and 1756. Example of the Article 1733 is the common carriers, bus, van, boat, and ship should take care and take responsibility of the safety of their passengers or goods transported by them. Transporting the tourists to the island where they should go, the charterer of the boat should be careful for he is responsible for the safety of his passengers. Next is the Article 1755. A common carrier is bound to carry the passengers safely as far as human care and foresight can provide, using the utmost diligence of very cautious persons with a due regard for all the circumstances. Example of the Article 1755 is a bus driver should be careful in driving for that he is responsible of the safety of his passengers. Articles 1756 and 1757. In case of death or injuries to passengers, common carriers are presumed to have been at fault or to have acted negligently, unless they prove that they observe extraordinary diligence as prescribed in Articles 1733 and 1755. The responsibility of a common carrier for the safety of passengers, as required in the Articles 1733 and 1755, cannot be dispensed or lessened by stipulation, by the posting of notices, by statement on tickets, or otherwise. Examples on that is in case the bus is bumped into a tree, the driver should be at fault for he knows that what to do or where he is going. He will face some cases because he acted negligently.
Liabilities of common carriers for the acts of employees and strangers. Article 1759. Common carriers are liable for the death of or injuries to passenger through the negligence or willful acts of the former employees, although such employees may have acted beyond the scope of their authority or in violation of the orders of the common carriers. This liability of the common carriers does not cease upon proof that they exercise all the diligence of a good father of a family in the selection and supervision of their employees. For example, the driver of the hotel van is so sleepy, but he have to still get the passenger or tourist of the Aloha Hotel for the airport at 2 in the morning. When going back to the hotel with the tourist inside the van, he cannot control his eyes and he fell asleep that lead them bumping into the tree. The driver shouldn't drive that time for he is sleepy and just pass to the other driver who is still in the hotel that is still awake. In this case, the driver is facing a case for negligence in driving and the manager of the hotel too because he or she didn't make sure that the driver is compatible in driving that time. Article 2118. The obligation imposed by Article 2118 is demandable not only for one's act or omission but also for those of person for whom one is responsible. For example, a tourist bus driver was approaching the bridge at a 40 to 45 kph. He saw the stalled truck which was then about 25 meters away. He applied the brakes and tried to swerve to the left to avoid hitting the truck. But it was too late. A tourist bus driver shall observe all the diligence for a good father to prevent damages. He must send the tourists with care from their starting point of the tour up to the point of origin. Section 35 LTO Republic of Number 4136. Restriction as to speed. Any person driving a motor vehicle on a highway shall drive the same at a careful and prudent speed, not greater nor less than is reasonable and proper, having due regard for the traffic, the width of the highway, and of any other condition then and there existing, and no person shall drive any motor vehicle upon a highway at such speed as to endanger their lives. For example, the driver of the hotel was in a hurry to drop off the tourist in the hotel that he is overspeeding. He doesn't care about the traffic lights and the safety of the passenger. In this case, the driver was disobeying the rules and regulation that the LTO is implementing. Damages recoverable from common carriers. Article 2231. In quasi-deluxe, exemplary damages may be granted if the defendant acted with gross negligence. For example, the driver of the tourist van made something inappropriate towards the lady tourist. The driver violated the law, not just the Article 2231, but also the law which violates the right against the woman. Next is the Article 2221. Nominal damages are adjudicated in order that a right of the plaintiff, which has been violated or invaded by the defendant, may be vindicated or recognized, and not for the purpose of identifying the plaintiff for any loss suffered by him. Third is the Article 2222. The court may award nominal damages in every obligation arising from any source enumerated in Article 1157, or in every case where any property right has been invaded. For example, the Natalie bus break the rules, like using it as a public service for the people. The government will ask fines or ban them. Regulation of Air Transportation. Legislative Act Number 3909. The enforcement of rules and regulations governing commercial aviation as well as private flying. For example, Senator Manny Pacquiao has a private plane which was given by his friend Mr. Lacson. Pacquiao uses this private plane every time he travels abroad with his family for relaxation, leisure, or even for his fight in his boxing career. Mr. Lacson has a numerous number of planes being used to travel within the country to visit different tourist destinations. Thus, Senator Manny Pacquiao and his friend, Mr. Lacson, has the responsibility to secure the licensing of airmen and the aircraft in accordance to the aviation laws. Registration of aircraft. Republic Act Number 77-6, an act to recognize the Civil Aeronautics Board and the Civil Aeronautics Administration to provide the regulation of civil aeronautics in the Philippines and authorizing the appropriation of funds therefor. For example, the Cebu Pacific should pay their taxes regularly, for they are only renting the airport for their business. They should follow the rules and regulation of the airport and the government, because the airport is owned by the government. Once they break the laws, there are tendencies they cannot render business again.
Regulation of the shipping industry. Presidential Decree Number 474. It is to integrate the development, promotion, and regulation of maritime industry in the country. For example, Mr. Secunto is a domestic ship operator. He provides shipping services to the coastal area, island, and region in the country where such services are necessary for travelers and tourists to provide easy access in the seaport. Authority to operate. Public Act Number 9295. It promotes the development of Philippine domestic shipping industry. Domestic ship operators are authorized to establish their own shipping rates provided effective competition is fostered and public interest is served. For example, the MV Lassen should follow the rules of the government that if the ship is for shipping only and not for transportation, once breaking the law, the ship will be banned in shipping again. Regulation of Land Transportation. Clean Air Act of 1999 is a comprehensive air quality management policy and program which aims to achieve and maintain healthy air for all Filipinos. For example, Cebu Pacific should make sure that the ambience inside the plane is safe and not smelly. Once the plane started to smell bad, the passenger will be discouraged. Seatbelt Law. Section 4 of RA 8750. Mandatory use of seatbelts for their own safety. The driver and the front seat passenger of a public or private motor vehicle are required to wear or use their seatbelt devices while inside a vehicle running engine on any road or thoroughfare. Any passenger who refuses to wear seatbelt shall not be allowed to continue his or her trip. For example, Mr. George Sanoses is an operator of tourist van of 100 units operating all over the Philippines. Ronnie Boy, one of the drivers of the tourist van being operated by Mr. Sanose, was caught by a police officer who imposed a fine on Ronnie Boy for not wearing any seatbelt at the time he was driving. In Ronnie Boy's defense, Mr. Sanose stipulated that Ronnie Boy should not have been imposed a fine because although the same latter was not wearing the same at the time he was driving, nevertheless the seatbelt was installed in a tourist van in compliance with the seatbelt law. Law on Transportation of Animals, Public Act 8485. It is the duty of the operator to ensure the safety of passengers with animals being transported, to provide in all cases adequate, clean, and sanitary facilities for the safe convenience of everyone. For example, Mr. David Thomas, an Australian citizen, wants to visit the Philippines. He has a pet beagle dog which he wants to bring in the Philippines. Mr. Thomas should write for an import permit at the Bureau of Animal Industry. He should secure a valid health and rabies certificate from the agency concerned at the port of origin shortly before shipment. The certificate will be required by the veterinary quarantine officer upon the arrival at the port of disembarkation. Any pet without such certificate will be detained by the Bureau of Animal Industry until cleared. Law on Importation of Vehicles, Public Act 7227. Some territories are declared as free port zone. Vehicle that is owned by a returning resident or immigrant and covered by authority to import under the No Dollar Importation Program. For example, the Subic Bay Freeport in Subic, Zambales, in order to attract their investors to invest their capital in a business climate, the local government allows the free flow of goods and capital in their port for the less hassle for the business investors. Public Act Number 6537, also known as Anti-Kidnapping Act of 1972. It shall the duty of the collector of customs having a jurisdiction of the principal port should inspect the registration and the ownership of the vehicles. For example, there is a tourist who came from Manila and she brought her car with her. When she arrived in Cebu, she is in a hurry to fetch up her car. Eventually, her car was lost. In this case, she has the right to file a case in the Collector of Customs against Republic Act Number 6537. Traffic Laws, Public Act Number 4136. It is the compilation of the relative law to land transportation and traffic laws which is being imposed to the traffic rules in our country. For example, there is a new tourist in the country and he brought his car with him but his car is unregistered. He already violated the rule of Public Act Number 4136. Limited Access Highway, Public Act Number 2000. To limit the access of facility and to regulate, restrict, or prohibit access as to best serve the traffic for which the facility is intended. For example, in the Mactan Cebu International Airport, there is a lane which is only intended for the private cars and yellow taxi, like in a departure area.